I'm Major Claire Donovan, 33 years old, a career officer in the United States Air Force, and a mother to one extraordinary little girl. For years, I balanced deployments, night shifts, and parent-teacher meetings while holding a family together that was quietly cracking apart. I thought discipline and devotion would be enough to keep us steady. But when my ex-husband stood in court and called me unstable, using my service and sleepless nights as proof I was unfit to raise our daughter, I made a choice that changed everything. Have you ever been dismissed or betrayed by someone you sacrificed everything for? If so, tell me your story in the comments. You're not alone. Before I get into what happened, let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you've ever had to stand your ground after being misjudged or undermined, hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming your worth. What came next might surprise you. I stand at attention in my dress blues, watching my daughter Lily trace the ribbon on my chest with one careful finger. She's 6 years old and asks if it hurt when I got the medal. I tell her no, sweetheart, they don't hurt when they pin them on. She nods seriously and asks if it hurt when I earned it. I don't answer that one. Some questions don't have good answers for first graders. Evan's in the kitchen making coffee. I hear the grinder whirring and know he's annoyed before he even speaks. He doesn't like it when I wear my uniform at home. Says it makes him feel like he's living on base. I've tried explaining that I have to wear it for official functions, that today's the promotion ceremony at Maxwell, that this isn't about him. He doesn't get it. Or maybe he gets it fine and just doesn't care. You're really wearing that to breakfast, he says, leaning against the door frame with his mug. Lily, go brush your teeth. She scampers off, and I'm left standing in our living room in Alabama, wondering when my husband started talking to me like I'm one of his interns. He works as a civil engineer for a defense contractor. Good money, flexible hours, the kind of job that lets him tell people at parties that he works with the military without ever having served. I've never thrown that in his face. Until recently, I didn't think I needed to. The ceremony's at 1100 hours, I say. I'll change after. 1100 hours, he repeats, mocking the way I tell time. You know normal people just say 11 o'clock, right? I feel my jaw tighten but keep my voice level. Evan, I'm going to be late. You're always late these days. Or early. Or just gone. He sets his mug down hard enough that coffee sloshes over the rim. When was the last time you actually relaxed? When did you last sleep past 0500? 0400, I correct automatically, then immediately regret it. Jesus Christ, Claire. You're doing it again. He wipes the spilled coffee with his palm, not bothering with a napkin. You know what your problem is? You can't turn it off. You come home from your deployments and you're still in soldier mode. Lily's 6 and she stands at attention when you call her name. That's not true. It is true. Last week at the Hendersons' barbecue, you literally said at ease when she was nervous about the dog. People laughed, Claire. They think it's funny that you can't be normal. The Hendersons' barbecue. I remember that. Lily had been anxious about their German Shepherd, and yes, I'd told her to stand easy, that the dog was friendly. I'd meant it as comfort, a way to help her relax using language she understood from watching me work. The adults had chuckled. I'd smiled along because what else do you do when people are laughing at the way you love your daughter? She wasn't scared after I said it, I point out. That's not the point. Evan picks up his mug again, cradles it like it's the only warm thing in the room. The point is that you're intense, Claire. You're always on. It's exhausting to live with. I could tell him that I'm intense because I've spent 2 deployments in places where being relaxed gets people killed. I could explain that my sleep schedule is permanent now, that my body doesn't understand the difference between Kandahar and Montgomery. I could say that maybe if he'd asked me about my second deployment instead of complaining about my nightmares, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But I don't say any of that. I've learned that vulnerability with Evan gets weaponized later. I'll work on it, I say instead. He nods like I've conceded something important. Good. And maybe talk to someone? The base has counselors, right? Therapists? I see the flight surgeon regularly. I'm cleared for duty. I'm not talking about being cleared for duty. I'm talking about being a normal wife and mother. He rinses his mug in the sink, his back to me. Lily deserves better than a mom who treats bedtime like a military operation. That one lands. I feel it in my chest, a small hot point of anger that I immediately suppress. My daughter's bedtime routine is consistent, calm, and loving. We read books. I sing off-key lullabies. I check her closet for monsters even though we both know they're not real. The fact that I also check the locks twice and keep my phone charged on my nightstand doesn't make me a bad mother. It makes me careful. Lily returns, toothpaste on her chin, and asks if she can come to the ceremony. Evan says no before I can answer. Says it's boring, that she'll have more fun with the babysitter. Lily looks at me for confirmation. I nod and tell her daddy's right, that it's just a lot of standing around. She accepts this because she's 6 and still believes that adults always tell the truth. After I drop Lily at the sitters and drive to base, I sit in my car for 5 minutes before going in. My hands are steady on the steering wheel. My breathing is controlled. Everything about me looks fine, and that's the problem. Evan's right that I can't turn it off, but he's wrong about why. It's not that I don't want to relax. It's that I don't remember how. Somewhere between dodging mortar fire and organizing fuel depot evacuations, I lost the ability to pretend that bad things don't happen to careful people. My phone buzzes with a text from Evan. Forgot to say good luck. Proud of you. 3 words tacked onto an apology that isn't really an apology. I don't respond. Inside, Colonel Keller is waiting to brief me before the ceremony. He asks if I'm ready for 04 for the increased responsibility. I tell him yes, sir, I am. He studies my face for a moment, the way commanding officers do when they're deciding whether to push or let something slide. He chooses to let it slide. The ceremony is everything it should be. I stand straight, accept my rank, salute smartly. My parents flew in from Colorado and sit in the front row beaming. Evan arrives late, slips into the back. Afterward, there's cake and conversation and handshakes. Someone jokes about how I'll have to get used to people calling me Major Mom. Everyone laughs. I laugh too, but I'm thinking about Lily at the babysitters, about how Evan didn't want her here, about how he called me exhausting this morning. On the drive home, he's quiet. Finally, he says, "You looked good up there." Very official. Thank you. I mean it. I know I'm hard on you sometimes. It's just, you're different than you used to be, Claire. Before the Air Force, you used to laugh more. You used to be spontaneous. Before the Air Force. I want to tell him that the person before the Air Force was 21 years old and didn't know that fuel fires sound like freight trains or that burning metal smells sweet. That person had never held pressure on a colleague's wounds or written condolence letters or made decisions that saved lives by fractions of seconds. I'm not that person anymore, and I can't be. But I'm also not the monster he's starting to make me out to be. I'm still me, I say quietly. Are you? He doesn't look at me, keeps his eyes on the road. Because sometimes I'm not sure. We pick up Lily and go home and have dinner like a normal family. I cut her chicken into small pieces. Evan tells a story about work that makes her giggle. We load the dishwasher together. Everything looks fine from the outside. But I can feel something shifting beneath us, some tectonic plate of our marriage starting to move. And I don't know how to stop it. The papers arrive on a Thursday while I'm at work. I come home from a rotation at 1700 hours expecting the usual chaos of a 6-year-old's after-school routine. Instead, I find silence. Lily's at her grandmother's house. Evan's sitting at the kitchen table with a manila folder in front of him and his hands folded like he's about to deliver a briefing. We need to talk, he says. I set my keys down carefully, feeling the weight of the moment before I even know what it contains. Okay. I can't do this anymore, Claire. I've tried. God knows I've tried. But you're not the woman I married. He slides the folder across the table. I've filed for divorce and temporary custody of Lily. My lawyer says it's best if you move out by the end of the month. The words don't land right at first. They bounce off some protective barrier my brain has constructed, a shield that's kept me functional through worse news than this. But then they sink in, heavy and cold. You're taking Lily? I'm protecting Lily. His voice is firm, rehearsed. This isn't spontaneous. He's practiced this. You're not well, Claire. You barely sleep. You're paranoid. You check the doors and windows 5 times a night. You wake up gasping. Last month you nearly broke my wrist when I touched your shoulder while you were sleeping. That was once. I apologized. I explained. You explained that you thought I was an insurgent. He says it like it's proof of something, like being momentarily disoriented makes me dangerous. Do you understand how insane that sounds? We live in suburban Alabama. There are no insurgents here. I open the folder with hands that have stayed steady through mortar attacks, but want to shake now. The documents inside are thorough. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Motion for temporary custody. A declaration from Evan listing my alleged instabilities, hypervigilance, insomnia, emotional detachment, inability to relax, obsessive behaviors. Reading his description of me is like looking at a stranger through a funhouse mirror. Everything's distorted just enough to seem real and horrifying. I'm not unstable, I say. I'm a decorated officer with an exemplary service record. You're a soldier who can't turn it off. There's a difference. He stands up, and I notice his overnight bag by the door. He's already leaving. I'll be at my brother's. My lawyer will contact you about the custody evaluation. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. Evan, wait. I stand too, but he's already moving toward the door. Can I at least see Lily tonight? She'll be scared if neither of us is here to say goodnight. My mother's handling bedtime. She knows the situation. He pauses with his hand on the doorknob. For what it's worth, I do think you need help. I hope you get it. I really do. Then he's gone, and I'm standing in my kitchen holding papers that describe me as emotionally volatile and potentially dangerous to my own child. I read through them again, slower this time, cataloging the evidence he's compiled. The nightmares I disclosed in what I thought were private conversations. The sleep patterns I can't control. The way I maintain structure and schedules because they're the only things that keep my life manageable. All of it twisted into pathology. I call my commander at 2200 hours, waking him up. Colonel Keller listens without interrupting while I explain the situation. When I finish, there's a long pause. Major Donovan, are you telling me your husband is using your military service as evidence that you're an unfit mother? Yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Get the best lawyer you can afford. Document everything. And Claire. His voice softens slightly. You're one of the most competent officers I've ever commanded. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I thank him and hang up. Then I sit at my kitchen table until 0300, reading and rereading the petition, trying to figure out when protecting my family became evidence that I shouldn't have one. The worst part isn't the divorce. Marriages end. I understand that. The worst part is that he's claiming I'm dangerous to Lily. That the same qualities that made me good enough to lead in combat make me too damaged for motherhood. My phone rings at 0800. It's the base legal office, already briefed by Colonel Keller. They recommend a civilian attorney who specializes in military family law. I make the appointment for that afternoon. Then I drive to Evan's mother's house to see my daughter. Mrs. Donovan answers the door with Lily on her hip and sympathy in her eyes. Oh, Claire. Evan told me. I'm so sorry. Can I see her? Of course. Come in. She sets Lily down, and my daughter runs to me with her arms out. I catch her, hold her tight, memorize the weight and warmth of her. She smells like the strawberry shampoo we use, the one she picked out herself because it has a princess on the bottle. Mommy, where were you? Grandma said you had to work late. I did, baby. But I'm here now. I carry her to the couch and settle her on my lap. Mrs. Donovan hovers nearby, awkward and uncertain. How would you feel about staying with Grandma for a few days? Like a little vacation. Is Daddy staying too? Sometimes. You'll get to see both of us, just not at the same time for a little while. She thinks about this with the seriousness of a child trying to decode adult behavior. Are you and Daddy mad at each other? No, sweetheart. We're just figuring some things out. I smooth her hair back from her forehead, the way I've done since she was a baby. But I want you to know that I love you more than anything in the whole world. That's never going to change, okay? Okay. She leans against my chest, satisfied with this explanation. Can we read my book tonight? Not tonight. But soon. I promise. I stay for 2 hours, reading picture books and playing with her dolls and pretending everything is normal. When I leave, Lily waves from the window, her small hand pressed against the glass. Mrs. Donovan walks me to my car. "He's wrong, you know," she says quietly. "About you. You're a wonderful mother." "Then why didn't you stop him?" She has no answer for that. I drive back to my empty house and start preparing for war. The custody evaluation takes place over 3 weeks. A court-appointed psychologist named Dr. Patel asks me questions designed to uncover pathology. Do I have nightmares? Yes. Do I have trouble sleeping? Yes. Do I experience hypervigilance? Yes. Each honest answer feels like ammunition I'm handing to my ex-husband. But lying would be worse. They'll check my medical records, my fitness reports, my deployment history. Better to control the narrative than have someone else construct it from fragments. "Tell me about Kandahar," Dr. Patel says during our 3rd session. "I've been expecting this." Evan's petition mentioned my 2nd deployment specifically, citing it as the source of my alleged instability. "What would you like to know?" "Whatever you're comfortable sharing." "I've read the summary in your service record, but I'd like to hear it from you." So I tell her. Not everything, some things don't translate into civilian language, but enough. The mortar attack at 0200 that ignited the fuel depot. The scramble to evacuate personnel while secondary explosions ripped through the night. The heat that made breathing feel like drowning. The 17 people who got out because I stayed calm and organized the response. "You received a commendation," Dr. Patel says. "Meritorious Service Medal." "Yes, ma'am." "Do you think about that night often?" "Sometimes. More than sometimes. Most nights." But I don't explain that the memory isn't traumatic in the way she probably expects. I don't have flashbacks or panic attacks. I just remember it with perfect clarity, the way you remember any night when your decisions determined whether people lived or died. It was my job. I did my job. Your ex-husband claims you've never discussed it with him. Is that accurate? He never asked. I meet her eyes steady. And I didn't think my 6-year-old daughter needed to hear about people burning to death. Dr. Patel makes a note. I can't read her expression. She asks about my sleep patterns, my daily routines, my relationship with Lily. I answer everything truthfully. Yes, I check the locks twice. Yes, I maintain consistent schedules. Yes, I wake up early and sleep late. No, none of that makes me a danger to my child. It makes me careful. It makes me prepared. In my world, those are virtues, not symptoms. The courtroom hearing is set for a Thursday in October. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Rebecca Morrison who served in the JAG Corps before going civilian, prepares me for what to expect. Evan's strategy will be emotional, she says. He'll paint me as cold, mechanical, damaged. We'll counter with facts. Service record, psychological evaluation, character witnesses. The truth will speak for itself. I wear my dress uniform to court. Rebecca advised civilian clothes, said we don't want to look too military. I overruled her. This is who I am. If that's a problem, we need to know now. The courtroom is smaller than I expected. Judge Marion Keaton presides, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses and an expression of permanent skepticism. Evan sits with his lawyer, Ben Reed, a guy with perfect hair and a smile that makes my skin crawl. Lily's not here, too young, thank God. She's with Mrs. Donovan again, probably playing with dolls and wondering why her parents keep making her stay with Grandma. Evan's testimony is everything Rebecca predicted. He describes living with a woman who treats their home like a forward operating base. Who can't relax, can't sleep, can't stop scanning for threats that don't exist. Who once grabbed his wrist so hard she left bruises because he startled her awake. His voice breaks when he talks about Lily, about how their daughter deserves a stable home environment, about how he's not sure I can provide that anymore. Your Honor, she's unstable, he says, and there's conviction in his voice, like he's genuinely convinced this is true. She doesn't even sleep. She paces the house at night checking doors and windows. She wakes up gasping. The courtroom gallery has a few people in it. Base personnel, mostly, here to support me. Someone laughs. Just a small sound, a chuckle quickly suppressed, but it carries in the quiet room. The judge frowns at the gallery, but the damage is done. I feel heat rising in my face, the same shame I felt at the Hendersons' barbecue when people laughed at the way I spoke to my daughter. Then Lily's voice cuts through the murmur. That's cause of the fire, right, Mom? Everyone turns. Mrs. Donovan is standing at the back of the courtroom with Lily on her hip. My daughter must have insisted on coming, must have made such a fuss that her grandmother brought her. She's looking at me with complete faith, asking a question she thinks she knows the answer to. The room goes absolutely silent. Judge Keaton leans forward. Young lady, what fire are you talking about? Lily looks at the judge with the same seriousness she brings to everything important. The one in Kandahar, when she saved her whole unit. I watch Evan's face drain of color. He's frozen, finally understanding what he's done. He thought my service record was just paperwork, just dates and ranks and deployments. He never asked what happened during those deployments. He never wanted to know. And now his 6-year-old daughter is explaining it to a courtroom full of strangers because he used my trauma as a weapon against me. Judge Keaton removes her glasses. Major Donovan, is this true? Were you involved in a significant incident in Afghanistan? I stand, hands at my sides. Yes, Your Honor. During my second deployment as a captain, I coordinated evacuation and fire suppression during an insurgent mortar attack that ignited a fuel depot. 17 personnel were extracted safely. I received a meritorious service medal for the action. The judge looks at Evan's lawyer. Mr. Reed, were you aware of this? Then Reed shuffles papers, stalling. Your Honor, the specifics of Major Donovan's service record, while commendable, don't negate concerns about her current psychological fitness for, I asked if you were aware, Judge Keaton interrupts. Yes or no? We had access to her service records, yes. And you chose to characterize her hypervigilance and sleep disturbance as evidence of unfitness rather than potential service-related stress? The judge's tone has shifted. Continue reading to rewrite Evan's petition. Now is when you reframe my combat experience as noble sacrifice rather than mental defect. She adjourns for lunch. Rebecca squeezes my shoulder and tells me we're winning. But I'm not watching the lawyers. I'm watching Lily, who's squirming out of her grandmother's arms and running toward me. I catch her, lift her up, hold her close. Did I do good, Mommy? She whispers in my ear. You did perfect, baby. I drive home alone after court adjourns, Lily already back at her grandmother's for the night. The highway stretches empty under October sunset, all orange and purple like something from a painting. My hands rest at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. My breathing is steady. Everything about me looks fine. But I keep replaying the moment in that courtroom when my daughter's 7 words dismantled my ex-husband's case. When the laughter died and the judge's expression changed from skeptical to something harder, something that looked like understanding. When Evan realized he'd been mocking trauma he'd never bothered to ask about. The house is exactly as I left it this morning. Bed made with hospital corners. Dishes put away. Nothing out of place. I change out of my dress blues and hang them carefully in the closet, smoothing the sleeves. Then I stand in my living room and try to remember how to feel something other than operational. I should be relieved. Rebecca texted during the drive. The judge's reaction was favorable. Evan's credibility is damaged. We have momentum. But relief won't come. Instead, I'm cycling through the last 3 years, every moment I downplayed or compartmentalized or made myself smaller to be more palatable. Every time Evan complained about my intensity and I apologized instead of asking why he married someone in the military if he wanted a different kind of wife. My phone rings at 2100 hours. Colonel Keller. Major Donovan. How did it go today? Better than expected, sir. My daughter made an appearance. He chuckles. I heard. Half the base is talking about it. 6-year-old takes down custody case with 1 sentence. Makes for a good story. Sir, I need to ask you something. I pause, choosing words carefully. Command requested I undergo administrative review after Evan filed. Is that standard procedure? It is when allegations involve mental fitness. We needed to verify no compromises to readiness or judgment. His tone shifts, becomes more personal. For what it's worth, you passed with flying colors. Dr. Nguyen's evaluation was flawless. No PTSD markers, no depression, no anxiety disorders. You're as stable as they come. Then why does it feel like everyone's waiting for me to break? Silence on the line. Then, because people don't understand what they haven't lived through. They see the symptoms without context and make assumptions. But you and I know the truth. Those symptoms kept you alive. They made you effective. The fact that they persist doesn't make you broken. It makes you adapted. We talk for another 10 minutes about scheduling and assignments. He mentions a potential training command position at Maxwell if I'm interested, something that would keep me local for Lily. I tell him I'll think about it. When we hang up, I feel steadier. Not happy, not whole, but functional. That's enough for now. Dr. Patel's report arrives via email the next morning. I read it standing in my kitchen, coffee getting cold in my hand. The language is clinical but clear. No evidence of psychological instability, no contraindications for custody, sleep disturbances consistent with combat exposure but well managed, strong parent-child bond, excellent coping mechanisms. At the bottom, in a section labeled Clinical Observations, she's written something that makes me read it 3 times. Major Donovan presents as a highly competent individual who has adapted to extraordinary circumstances with remarkable resilience. Her behavioral patterns, while consistent with mild hypervigilance, do not impair functioning and may in fact represent appropriate caution given her professional experience. There is no clinical basis for concerns about her fitness as a parent. I forward it to Rebecca with a single word: ammunition. The week passes in a strange suspension. I go to work, attend briefings, file reports. Everything continues as normal, but I feel separated from it by a thin membrane of unreality. In the evenings, I visit Lily at Mrs. Donovan's. We read books and play games and don't talk about court. She asks when she can come home. I tell her soon, sweetheart, very soon. On Friday, Rebecca calls with news. Evan's lawyer wants to negotiate. The judge's reaction spooked them. They're willing to discuss joint custody with me as primary residential parent if we can agree on terms. It's not a full victory, but it's close. It means Lily comes home. Take it, I tell Rebecca. We could push for more. The momentum is on our side. I don't want more. I want my daughter back and I want this finished. I'm sitting in my car in the base parking lot, watching planes take off in the distance. Make it happen. She makes it happen. By the following Wednesday, we have an agreement. Joint legal custody, me as primary residential parent, Evan gets alternating weekends and 1 evening per week. No restrictions, no supervised visits, no acknowledgement of his allegations because they've been dropped. It's not perfect, but it's done. I pick Lily up on Thursday afternoon. Mrs. Donovan helps carry her things to the car. She hugs me tight before we leave and whispers, "I'm sorry for what he put you through." I nod because I don't trust my voice. Lily chatters the entire drive home about what she did at Grandma's, how she missed her room, whether we can have pizza for dinner. I let her talk, absorbing the sound of her voice, the normalcy of complaints about vegetables and negotiations about bedtime. That night, after dinner and bath and stories, I tuck her into her bed with the purple butterfly sheets she picked out last summer. She asks if I'll check her closet for monsters. I do, making a show of it, peeking behind coats and shoes. All clear, I report. She giggles. Mommy? Yeah, baby. At court, when I talked about the fire. Was that okay? Grandma said maybe I shouldn't have, but I wanted them to know you're brave. I sit on the edge of her bed, smoothing the blankets. It was more than okay. You told the truth, and that's always the right thing to do. She nods, satisfied. You are brave. The bravest mom in the whole world. I kiss her forehead and turn off the light, leaving the door cracked the way she likes it. Then I walk to my own room and sit on my bed in the dark. I don't check the locks yet. Don't verify the windows. I just sit and breathe and let myself feel the weight of the last month, the exhaustion and anger and fear I've been too operational to process. Tomorrow, I'll receive notification of my promotion to major being formally recognized by the promotion board. In 6 months, I'll move to a training command position at Maxwell. But tonight, I'm just a mother who got her daughter back, a woman whose trauma was finally named instead of mocked. It's not vindication. Not really. But it's something close to justice. And for now, that's enough. 3 months after the custody settlement, Evan requests a meeting. His text is polite, formal. Would you have time to talk? About Lily. No lawyers, just us. I consider ignoring it. We have a system that works. Drop-offs and pickups happen smoothly. He sees her every other weekend and Wednesday evenings. We communicate through a co-parenting app that keeps everything documented and civil. There's no reason to disrupt that. But Rebecca advised me during the settlement that rebuilding some kind of functional relationship with Evan would benefit Lily long-term. Kids know when their parents can't stand to be in the same room. They feel the tension even when adults think they're hiding it. So I text back, Saturday afternoon. Veterans Park. 1,400 hours. He responds with a thumbs-up emoji. I resist the urge to correct his choice of mid-afternoon timing. Saturday comes cold and clear, the kind of January day where sunshine lies about the temperature. I arrive at the park early, claiming a bench with sight lines to all entrances. Old habits. Evan shows up at 1400 exactly, hands in his jacket pockets, looking older than I remember. 3 months shouldn't age someone, but stress does strange things to people. Thanks for meeting me, he says, sitting on the opposite end of the bench, maintaining careful distance. You said it was about Lily. It is. Sort of. He watches a mother pushing a toddler on the swings across the playground. She's been asking questions. About the deployment, about Kandahar. She wants to know more about what you did. What did you tell her? That she should ask you. He finally looks at me. I didn't know, Claire. About the fire, about any of it. And I should have known. That's on me. This is the closest Evan has come to apologizing since the divorce papers. I don't respond immediately, letting the admission sit between us. A jogger passes, headphones in, oblivious. Somewhere a dog barks. The world continues its normal operations while my ex-husband tries to rebuild a bridge he burned. You could have asked, I say finally. I would have told you. Would you have? Really? His voice isn't challenging, just curious. Because every time I tried to talk about your deployments, you changed the subject. You compartmentalized everything military, kept it separate from home life. I thought that's what you wanted. He's not entirely wrong. I did compartmentalize. Had to function in both worlds. But there's a difference between maintaining professional boundaries and feeling silenced by disinterest. You complained about my symptoms without caring about their source. That's different from respecting privacy. I know that now. He picks at a splinter on the bench. I was scared, Claire. You'd come back different each time, more distant, harder to reach. I didn't know how to handle it, so I made it about me. Made you the problem instead of admitting I felt inadequate. You took my daughter. I was trying to protect her from something I didn't understand. And I was angry. You were this decorated officer, respected on base, important. And I was just the civilian husband who couldn't compete with that. He lets out a breath that clouds in the cold air. It's not an excuse. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just trying to explain. I study his profile, this man I married at 23 when we were both different people with simpler problems. He was charming and stable and wanted a family. I was idealistic and ambitious and wanted both military and home life. For a while, we made it work through sheer determination. Then reality caught up. What do you want, Evan? Really? I want Lily to know both her parents are good people who made mistakes. I want her to be proud of you without feeling like she has to choose sides. He turns to face me fully. And I want to apologize. Properly. For using your service against you, for not trying to understand, for everything I said in court. You're not unstable. You're not cold. You're one of the strongest people I've ever known, and I should have said that instead of making you feel broken. The apology lands differently than I expected. It doesn't fix anything, doesn't erase the betrayal or the humiliation of having my trauma mocked in court. But it acknowledges the harm, names it clearly. That matters more than I thought it would. Thank you, I say. We sit in silence for a while, watching the park's small winter population. A teenager walks a golden retriever. An elderly couple feeds ducks at the pond despite the sign requesting they don't. Normal people doing normal things, unaware they're background extras in someone else's difficult conversation. Will you tell her? Evan asks. About Kandahar? When she's ready. When she asks and I think she can handle the answer. Will you tell her the truth? I consider this. The truth is complicated. The truth is fire and fear and split-second decisions and luck. The truth is that I did my job well under circumstances that could have gone catastrophically wrong. But it's also that I carry those nights with me, that they've changed my sleep and my startle response and my relationship to safety. The truth is that Lily deserves to know her mother as a whole person, not a sanitized version designed to be palatable. I'll tell her the important parts, I say. The parts that matter. Evan nods. That's fair. He asks about her school performance, her friends, whether she's still doing gymnastics. We trade information like diplomats exchanging intelligence, careful and cordial. He mentions he's seeing someone, a woman from work, nothing serious yet. I tell him that's good, that I hope he's happy. I mean it. His misery serves no one, especially not Lily. When we stand to leave, he extends his hand. I shake it, feeling the strangeness of this formal gesture between people who once shared a bed and a life. Then he walks to his car and I walk to mine, and we drive away in different directions like we're supposed to. That evening, Lily asks if I talked to Daddy. I confirm that I did, that we discussed her schooling and activities. She asks if we're friends now. I tell her we're friendly, which is different but still good. She accepts this with the adaptability of children, for whom adult relationships are mysterious, but ultimately their parents' problem to solve. At bedtime, she asks about Afghanistan. Not about combat or fire, just what it was like. Whether it was hot, whether I missed her, whether I was scared. I tell her it was very hot, that I missed her every single day, and that yes, sometimes I was scared, but I had a job to do and people counting on me. Like when I have to do my math test, she asks. Exactly like that, I lie, because the truth is more complex than she needs right now. She falls asleep satisfied. I check the locks once, the windows once, and turn in early. The conversation with Evan has loosened something I didn't know was tight. He's not forgiven, not entirely. But he's acknowledged the harm. He's named his failures. That's more than a lot of people get from the people who've hurt them. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. I almost delete it unread, but something makes me open it. Major Donovan, this is Captain Sloan Rivers. You probably don't remember me, but I was in your unit in Kandahar during the fuel depot fire. I heard about your custody case through the grapevine. Just wanted to say we still tell that story, ma'am. You saved us. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. I read it 3 times. Then I save the number and respond. I remember you, Captain. Thank you. The ghosts of Kandahar will always be with me. The heat, the noise, the frantic calculations of risk and time and human life. But they're not shameful. They're not evidence of damage or instability. They're proof that I functioned when it mattered most, that I kept my head while others might have panicked. And slowly, finally, I'm learning to see them that way too. Major Mom, you have to sign this permission slip or I can't go to the field trip. Lily shoves a crumpled paper at me across the breakfast table. She's 8 now, gap-toothed and gangly, growing into herself with startling speed. The nickname that began as a joke at my promotion ceremony has stuck. Her friends call me Major Mom. Their parents call me Major Mom. Even some of the junior officers at Maxwell have started using it, though they have the sense to look embarrassed about it. Use both hands when you pass papers, I say, smoothing out the form. And say please. Please, Major Mom. I sign the slip for the Space Center field trip and hand it back properly. Put it in your folder now so you don't forget it. She does, then returns to her cereal. I watch her eat, this small person who dismantled a custody case with 7 words, who carries parts of me and parts of Evan and increasingly large parts that are entirely her own. She's resilient in ways I wasn't at 8. She's learning to navigate her parents' separate lives with grace I'm still working to match. My phone chimes with a reminder. 1400 meeting at the Air War College. I've been teaching crisis leadership there for 6 months now, transferred from my training command position when the opportunity opened. It's good work, important work, teaching the next generation of officers how to maintain composure when systems fail and lives hang in the balance. The promotion to lieutenant colonel came through last month. Oh, 5 at 38. ahead of the typical timeline. Colonel Keller wrote the recommendation himself, citing my operational record and instructional excellence. Evan texted congratulations. We're better now, 3 years past the worst of it. Not friends exactly, but functional co-parents who can sit through school concerts without visible tension. At the War College, I lectured to a room of majors and lieutenant colonels, all of them hungry to prove themselves, to demonstrate they have what it takes for higher command. I recognize that hunger because I carried it once too. Still do, though tempered now by experience and the knowledge that ambition without wisdom is just noise. Today's scenario: base crisis response under contested conditions. I present the case study without mentioning it's based on Kandahar, on that 0200 mortar attack that changed everything. Let them work the problem clean, without the weight of knowing it's real. They debate courses of action, arguing about resource allocation and risk assessment. A captain, young and confident, suggests consolidating personnel in one location for efficiency. I let the class tear that approach apart: concentrated targets, single points of failure, tactical vulnerability. Eventually, they converge on distributed response with centralized command, the solution I implemented that night. Who here has actually managed a crisis of this scale? I ask when the exercise concludes. 2 hands go up from the 20 people in the room. This is the reality of peacetime military: lots of training, limited application. They need to be ready for scenarios they hope never to face. The key isn't having the perfect plan, I tell them. It's maintaining composure when your plan fails. Because it will fail. Some variable you didn't account for will appear. The question is whether you can adapt without losing control of yourself or your people. A major in the back raises her hand. How do you train for composure under that kind of stress? You don't. You just do it. And then you live with it afterward. I see confusion in some faces, understanding in others. But you can train for competence. For knowing your systems and people well enough that adaptation becomes instinct rather than improvisation. That's what saves lives when circumstances go wrong. After class, the young captain approaches my desk. "Ma'am, that scenario felt very specific. Was it based on a real incident?" Most good training scenarios are. Were you there? I meet her eyes, seeing the question behind the question. Are you who I want to become? Yes, Captain. I was there. She nods slowly. Thank you for sharing it with us. I drive home that evening thinking about legacy, about what we pass down to the people who come after us. My service record will eventually reduce to lines on a form: deployments, ranks, decorations. But the stories persist. The lessons learned in moments of crisis become teaching points, training scenarios, institutional knowledge. The fire in Kandahar, which once felt like my private nightmare, has become valuable precisely because I survived it and can now extract its lessons for others. Lily's at Evan's tonight, so the house is quiet. I make dinner for one, eat standing at the counter, scroll through emails. There's one from the Air Force Personnel Center about a potential staff assignment at the Pentagon. I mark it for later consideration. DC would be good for career progression, but complicated for custody. Everything is complicated with custody. My phone rings at 2100. Evan. Hey, is everything okay? Everything's fine. Lily wanted to say goodnight. There's fumbling, then my daughter's voice. Mom? We had spaghetti for dinner, and I only got sauce on my shirt a little bit. That's very impressive. Did you do your homework? Yes. Well, most of it. Dad's helping with the math. She pauses. Mom, my friend Ashley asked why you have a different name than me and Dad. I didn't know what to say. This conversation was inevitable. We discussed how to handle it, present a united front, keep it age-appropriate, focus on love rather than failure. What did you tell her? That you and Dad used to be married, but aren't anymore, but you're both still my parents. Was that right? That was exactly right, sweetheart. Ashley says her parents are divorced too. She says it's normal. A lot of families look different, I say carefully. What matters is that everyone is loved and taken care of. And you are both those things. I know. She yawns audibly. Dad says I have to go to bed now. Love you, Major Mom. Love you too, baby. Evan comes back on the line. She's getting more questions at school. About us, about your job, about why she has 2 houses. I know. It's part of the process. She handles it well. Better than we did at her age, probably. He clears his throat. Listen, I wanted to mention, Sarah and I are getting serious. I'm thinking about proposing soon. I wanted to tell you before I told Lily. Sarah is the woman from work, the one he's been seeing for almost 2 years now. I've met her twice at pickup. She's kind to Lily, doesn't overstep, seems to understand the delicate ecosystem of post-divorce parenting. That's good, Evan. I'm happy for you. Really? Really. Lily deserves to see healthy relationships. If Sarah makes you happy, that matters. There's a pause. Then, thanks, Claire. That means a lot. We say goodbye and hang up. I sit in my quiet house and feel the strange peace of truly not caring that my ex-husband is moving on. The anger that once burned hot has cooled to indifference. He's Lily's father, my co-parent, a person I share logistics with. Nothing more, nothing less. I spend the evening reviewing papers for tomorrow's class, making notes about leadership under resource constraints. At 2300, I check the locks, verify the windows, set my alarm for 0530. The routines that once marked me as unstable now just mark me as me. I don't apologize for them anymore. In bed, I think about Captain River's text from 3 years ago. We still tell that story. About how my worst night became someone else's example of competence under pressure. About how survival isn't always about moving on, sometimes it's about integrating what happened into who you are, letting the scars become part of your story rather than something to hide. Lily is loved by 2 parents in 2 houses. I am respected in my career, advancing steadily, teaching others to lead. Evan is building a new life with someone better suited to him. These are victories, small but real. Not the ones I imagined at 23 when I thought marriage and military would coexist simply. But victories nonetheless. And some nights, that's enough. The auditorium at Maxwell's Spatz Center holds 200 people, and today it's full. Annual Leadership Symposium, where senior officers present on topics relevant to Air Force culture. My session, Building Resilient Teams in High-Stress Environments. The title is deliberately broad, academic enough to sound professional, but grounded enough to promise practical application. I stand backstage watching the previous presenter wrap up, a colonel discussing innovation in acquisition processes. Important work, necessary work, but the kind that makes eyes glaze. When he finishes to polite applause, the symposium director introduces me with my full biography, education, deployments, current assignment at the Air War College. The Kandahar incident gets one line, Meritorious Service Medal for Crisis Response during Combat Operations. Walking to the podium feels like every other high-stakes moment, controlled breathing, neutral expression, awareness of the room's energy. 200 faces watching, waiting to see if the next 50 minutes will be worthwhile. I recognize some of them, former students, colleagues, the occasional brass checking how I perform at this level. Good afternoon, I begin. Today I'm going to tell you about the worst night of my deployment. Then I'm going to explain why that night taught me more about leadership than 4 years of peacetime operations. I have their attention now. Combat stories always land, but I'm careful not to sensationalize. I present Kandahar factually, the mortar strike at 0200, the fuel depot ignition, the need for immediate evacuation under active threat. I walk them through the decision tree, personnel locations, fire suppression resources, communication breakdowns, the 73 variables competing for attention while fire and explosives made a hell of the night. The plan I developed lasted approximately 4 minutes before circumstances changed, I tell them. Secondary explosions made our primary evacuation route impassable. Radio communications failed due to interference. The fire spread faster than models predicted. Every assumption I'd made was now invalid. I click to the next slide, which shows a simple diagram of base layout. But here's what didn't fail: my knowledge of personnel locations, my understanding of our equipment capabilities, the trust my team had in my judgment because I'd invested in relationships before crisis hit. Those elements allowed adaptation when the plan collapsed. I talk for 40 minutes about building trust, about knowing your people and systems deeply enough that improvisation becomes possible, about maintaining composure as an act of leadership rather than personality trait. I don't mention that I still check locks twice or wake at 0500 regardless of when I sleep. Those details aren't relevant to the professional lessons. During Q&A, a major asks the question I've been waiting for, "Ma'am, how did you manage the after effects? Were there psychological impacts from that kind of stress?" Yes, I say simply. Combat experiences change you. But change isn't the same as damage. I sought appropriate support through military medical channels. I maintained healthy habits. And I didn't let anyone convince me that adaptation to extraordinary circumstances made me somehow deficient for ordinary life. I pause. Your people will watch how you handle stress and after effects. Model healthy recovery, not invulnerability. That's how you build a culture where asking for help is strength, not weakness. The symposium ends at 1700. People approach afterward with questions, with their own stories, with thanks for saying things that often go unspoken in military culture. A lieutenant colonel pulls me aside and says her daughter wants to be a pilot, asks if I'd be willing to talk to her about balancing service and motherhood. I exchange contact information, promise to follow up. Driving home, I think about that major's question, about managing after effects. The true answer is more complicated than symposium time allowed. Yes, I sought support. Yes, I maintained routines. But I also learned that some people will always see your adaptation as pathology, your vigilance as paranoia, your discipline as rigidity. Learning to stop internalizing those judgments took longer than learning to manage the actual symptoms. Lily's home when I arrive, having taken the bus from school. She's 12 now, on the edge of teenager territory, gaining independence in ways that make me proud and nervous simultaneously. She's sprawled on the couch with homework and headphones, mouthing along to music I don't recognize. I tap her foot. She pulls one earbud out. "How is school?" "Fine. Boring. We have to write an essay about someone we admire." She pauses. "Can I write about you?" "You can write about whoever you want, sweetheart. But you might want to pick someone your teacher doesn't already know." "That's the point, though. She doesn't really know you. Nobody at school does except the military kids, and even they only know the basic stuff." She sits up, animated now. "You saved 17 people in a fire while people were shooting at you. That's way more interesting than the usual essays about grandparents and athletes. What would you write?" She considers this seriously. "That you don't quit. That when things get hard, you don't give up or freak out. You just figure out what needs to happen and do it." She shrugs. "And that you're a good mom even though you also have an important job." "Mrs. Patterson says women can't have both, but you do." "Mrs. Patterson said that?" "In social studies. When we were talking about career choices." Lily catches my expression. "Don't get mad. It's just her opinion." "I'm not mad. I'm calculating." Mrs. Patterson is entitled to her opinions, but presenting them as fact to 12-year-olds crosses a line. "I'll speak to her." "Mom, no. That's embarrassing." "I'll speak to her professionally." "About curriculum accuracy." I smile at Lily's horrified face. "Relax. I know how to handle these conversations without embarrassing my daughter." She doesn't look convinced. "Can you at least not wear your uniform?" "I'll consider it." That evening, after dinner and homework review, Lily returns to her essay. I read over her shoulder without commenting. She's written, "My mom is Major Claire Donovan, and she protects people. She protected soldiers in Afghanistan when there was a fire. She protects me by making sure I do my homework and eat vegetables. She protects her students by teaching them how to lead. My mom doesn't quit when things are hard. She just keeps going." "That's good," I tell her. Strong thesis statement. "Really? You don't think it's too simple?" "Sometimes simple is best. You stated your point clearly. Now support it with examples." I squeeze her shoulder. "And Lily? Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me clearly. For understanding that protecting people isn't just one thing, it's a lot of different things depending on what's needed." She looks up at me with Evan's brown eyes in my facial structure. "You're my mom. Of course I see you." Later, after she's in bed, I sit at my desk with a cup of tea and pull up the email from Personnel Center about the Pentagon assignment. It would mean a move, new schools for Lily, renegotiating custody arrangements. But it would also mean influence at policy level, a chance to shape programs that affect thousands of airmen. The kind of opportunity that doesn't come twice. I start drafting a response expressing interest, outlining my qualifications, noting the need to coordinate timing with family obligations. Professional, enthusiastic, honest about constraints. The decision isn't mine alone, it affects Lily, affects Evan's schedule, affects the careful ecosystem we've built over 5 years of co-parenting. But I'm not automatically disqualifying myself anymore. Not assuming that being a mother means limiting career progression. Not letting anyone's definition of what's possible override my own assessment of what I can handle. My phone buzzes with a text from Colonel Keller. Heard your symposium presentation killed. Brass were impressed. Keep doing what you're doing. I respond with thanks and save the email draft. Tomorrow, I'll talk to Evan about the Pentagon possibility, start the conversation about what change might look like. Tonight, I check the locks, verify the windows, set my alarm for 05:30. The routines that once marked me as damaged now just mark me as careful. As someone who understands that safety is constructed through small, consistent actions, that catastrophe is prevented through attention to detail, that protecting the people you love means staying alert even when everything seems fine. They called me unstable because I couldn't sleep. They never asked why. But my daughter did. And that made all the difference. I'm conducting a change of command ceremony at Bolling Air Force Base in Washington, D.C., on a morning so humid the flags hang limp against their poles. My daughter stands in the front row between her father and Sarah, now his wife of 8 months. Lily's 13, wearing a sundress she picked out herself, trying to look mature and mostly succeeding. She catches my eye and grins, braces flashing in the sunlight. The ceremony is formal, precise, exactly what it needs to be. I'm relinquishing command of the Air Force Leadership Development Division to Colonel Marcus Webb, a sharp officer who I've been mentoring for the past 6 months. General Patricia Ashford presides, reading my orders and commendations with the practiced cadence of someone who's done this hundreds of times. When she pins the Legion of Merit on my chest, I think about the long road from captain to colonel, from Kandahar to the Pentagon. From a woman accused of being too damaged for motherhood to one trusted with shaping leadership policy for the entire Air Force. Colonel Donovan's contributions to leader development have been transformative, General Ashford says to the assembled crowd of maybe 100 people. Her crisis response framework is now standard curriculum at all PME levels. Her mentorship of junior officers has directly impacted retention rates. And her willingness to share personal experience in service of institutional learning exemplifies the very best of Air Force leadership. The applause is genuine. I've worked hard this past year, 14-hour days balanced against custody schedules and Lily's school events. The Pentagon assignment turned out to be everything I hoped, challenging, influential, meaningful. But it cost. Always costs. Missed dinners, homework help via video call, the guilt of choosing career over presence even when I know both matter. After the ceremony concludes, people cluster in small groups for the reception. Punch and cookies in a room that smells like industrial carpet and air conditioning. Lily navigates through the crowd toward me with the confidence of a child who's grown up on military bases, comfortable with rank and protocol in ways her civilian classmates aren't. That was cool, Mom. You looked really official. I was being really official. I know, but usually you're just Mom. It's weird seeing everyone treat you like you're important. I'm always important. I'm your mother. She rolls her eyes, but she's smiling. Evan and Sarah approach together. He's put on a little weight, looks settled in a way he never did when we were married. Sarah's hand rests lightly on his arm, casual intimacy that no longer stings to witness. Congratulations, Claire, Evan says. That was an impressive ceremony. You've come a long way. We all have. I shake Sarah's hand, thank her for making the trip. They drove 3 hours from Alabama for this, which matters. Lily needed both her parents here, and Evan showed up. That's growth. Sarah leans in slightly. Lily talks about you constantly. About your work, about the mentorship program you started. She's incredibly proud of you. The feeling is mutual. They drift away to give me space for other conversations. Colonel Keller appears next, retired now but still sharp, still paying attention to his former officers' careers. We talk about his consulting work, about the state of Air Force culture, about whether I'll consider another deployment if it's offered. I'm honest, I don't know. Lily's at an age where stability matters more. But I'm also at a career stage where certain opportunities only come once. You'll make the right call, he says. You always do. I'm not sure that's true, but I appreciate the faith. The reception winds down by 1500 hours. I change out of my dress blues in the women's locker room, trading them for civilian clothes, jeans, and a blouse that Lily helped me pick out last weekend. She's getting better at fashion than I ever was. We drive to our apartment in Arlington, a 2-bedroom place that's temporary housing until I figure out if this assignment will extend beyond the initial year. Can we order Thai food? Lily asks, scrolling through her phone. I'm craving pad see ew. Sure. Extra vegetables in yours. Mom, I'm 13. You don't have to police my vegetable intake anymore. I'm your mother. I'll police your vegetable intake until you move out and possibly after. She laughs and places the order while I change into comfortable clothes. The apartment is smaller than our house in Alabama, but it's ours. Lily's room has posters of bands I don't recognize and a desk covered in art supplies. The living room has my books and her books intermixed on shelves, our lives blending in the casual way of people who've learned to coexist peacefully. While we wait for delivery, she flops onto the couch and pats the cushion next to her. Can we talk about something? The serious tone triggers my attention. Of course. Ashley, you remember Ashley from school back home? Her mom just enlisted. She's going to basic training next month and Ashley's freaking out because she doesn't know what it's like when your mom's in the military. What did you tell her? That it's hard sometimes, but also kind of cool. That you miss them when they're gone, but you're proud of what they do. That it's different from having civilian parents, but not bad different, just different. She picks at a thread on the couch cushion. Was I right? You were exactly right. I brush her hair back from her face. What's Ashley worried about specifically? That her mom will change. That she'll come back different and not want to be her mom anymore. Lily looks up at me. I know you changed after Kandahar. Dad told me once, before he understood it was okay that you changed. But you were still my mom. You were always my mom. My throat tightens. Did it scare you? When I was different? A little. You were quieter. You checked on me more at night. You jumped sometimes when I surprised you. She shrugs. But you read me stories and helped with homework and came to my school stuff. So it was fine. The important parts didn't change. I pull her close, this almost teenager who's had to grow up understanding things most kids her age never consider. You can tell Ashley that her mom will probably be different in some ways. Military service changes people. But loving your kid isn't one of the things that changes. That's permanent. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't lying. We eat Thai food on the couch while watching a cooking competition show Lily loves. She provides running commentary on the contestants' techniques, critiquing their knife skills and flavor combinations with the confidence of someone who watches way too much Food Network. I half listen, mostly just enjoying the normalcy of this moment. My daughter, home with me, safe and whole and becoming herself. After dinner, I review briefing materials for Monday's meeting while Lily does homework at the kitchen table. Around 2100 hours, she comes to stand beside my chair. Mom, can I ask you something about Kandahar? I close my laptop. Yes. Were you scared? Like actually terrified, or were you too busy to be scared? This is new territory. She's asked about the fire before, but always the broad strokes. Never the emotional reality underneath. Both. There were moments of pure terror. And then there were stretches where I was too focused on the next decision to feel anything except operational. Which was worse? The terror, probably. Because that's when you can freeze. When fear takes over and you stop thinking clearly. I lean back in my chair. But I'd trained for years to not freeze. To push through fear and maintain focus. So even the terror didn't last long. It would spike, and then I'd redirect it into action. That sounds exhausting. It was. Afterward, I slept for almost 18 hours straight. She processes this, nodding slowly. Ashley's worried her mom will have nightmares. Do you still have nightmares? Sometimes. Less than I used to. And when I do, I know what they are. They're just my brain processing old stress. They can't hurt me. Does it help? Knowing that? It does. Understanding what's happening makes it manageable. I stand and stretch, feeling my back crack. Why all the questions tonight? I don't know. I guess seeing you at the ceremony today made me think about how much you've done. How much you've been through. And I wanted to understand it better. She fidgets with her bracelet. Also, Mrs. Chen assigned us a project on interviewing someone we admire about a challenge they overcame. I was thinking maybe I could interview you. About Kandahar? About all of it. The fire, the custody thing with Dad, building your career, being a single mom. All the hard stuff you got through. I study her face, looking for signs that this is too much, that she's taking on emotional weight she shouldn't have to carry. But what I see is genuine curiosity, the kind that comes from respect rather than burden. Okay, but we do it right. You prepare questions, I give you honest answers, and we talk about anything that's too heavy as we go. Deal? Deal. That weekend, we conduct the interview in our living room. Lily's set up her phone to record, has a notebook full of questions, looks every bit the serious journalist. I've thought about what I want to say, how to be honest without overwhelming her, how to model healthy reflection on difficult experiences. Her questions are good. Thoughtful. She asks about the moment I realized the evacuation plan wasn't working, about how I made decisions so quickly, about whether I was angry at the insurgents or just focused on the problem. I answer as honestly as I can, explaining that anger is a luxury you can't afford in crisis, that emotions come later when people are safe. What about Dad? She asks. When did you realize the marriage wasn't working? That's off topic for your project. But it's part of your challenge story. You lost your marriage, but got me full-time. That's overcoming something hard. She's not wrong. I realized during my last reintegration leave. Your dad was making comments about how I operated, about how I couldn't relax. At first, I thought it was adjustment stress. But then I noticed he wasn't asking questions, wasn't trying to understand. He was just criticizing. That's when I knew we were in trouble. Did you try to fix it? I tried to be smaller. Less intense. I apologized for things that weren't really problems. I made myself quiet so he wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I meet her eyes. That was a mistake. You should never make yourself smaller to make someone else comfortable with your strength. She writes this down verbatim. That's a good quote. It's a hard-learned lesson. We talk for 2 hours. About the custody case, about how humiliating it felt to have my service used against me, about the moment she spoke up in court. About how her 7 words changed everything by naming the truth clearly. I was so scared that day, she admits. Grandma didn't want me to go to court, but I made her take me. I knew Daddy was saying mean things about you, and I wanted to make them stop. You were 6 years old. I know. But I knew you weren't crazy or scary. You were just my mom who worked really hard and sometimes had bad dreams. That's not the same as being unfit. She looks down at her notes. Did it hurt? When people laughed? Yes, because they were laughing at trauma they didn't understand. They were mocking symptoms of experiences they'd never faced. I pause, making sure she hears this next part. But their ignorance wasn't my shame. I stopped carrying other people's misunderstanding as my burden. That was important. When did you stop? Gradually. Over years. I still have moments where I worry people are judging my vigilance or my routines. But mostly now I just exist as I am and let people think what they want. She closes her notebook. You're really brave, Mom. Not just the fire stuff. The after stuff too. The not letting people make you feel broken. You're pretty brave yourself. Not everyone could handle their parents' divorce and a cross-country move at 13. I had good modeling, she says, grinning. Then her expression shifts. Are you dating anyone? The question surprises me. No. Why? Just wondering. Dad has Sarah, and she's nice. But you're alone a lot. Doesn't that get lonely? I consider how to answer this honestly. Sometimes. But I'm also complete as I am. I don't need a partner to be whole. If I meet someone who adds value to my life without requiring me to diminish myself, that's great. But I'm not searching for it. Good. Because you deserve someone who thinks you're amazing just how you are. So do you, eventually, when you're 35 and start dating. Mom, 29. I'm 13. Fine. 29. And they have to pass a background check. She throws a pillow at me, laughing. The interview concludes. We order pizza and watch a movie, normal Sunday night activities. But something has shifted between us. She understands me better now. Understands the full shape of my story, not just the outline. And I understand that she's capable of holding that complexity, of seeing her mother as a complete person rather than just a parent. Monday morning, I'm back at the Pentagon for meetings about implementation of the new crisis response framework. The conference room is full of officers from different commands, all weighing in on logistics and timing. I present findings from the pilot program at Maxwell, showing improved performance metrics and officer feedback. The discussion is technical, detailed, exactly the kind of policy work that seemed boring from the outside, but is actually deeply satisfying. We're building systems that will train thousands of airmen, that will potentially save lives when crisis hits. At lunch, I eat at my desk and call Colonel Keller for advice on a different project. He mentions hearing that I'm being considered for Brigadier General in the next promotion cycle. It's the first I've heard of it, and I'm careful not to react too strongly. Oh, 7 is a significant jump, politically complicated, statistically unlikely. But possible. Don't let it make you crazy, he advises. Just keep doing excellent work and let the boards decide. Yes, sir. And Claire? You've earned it. Whatever happens, you've earned consideration. That evening, Lily video calls from her dad's house where she's spending the week. She's animated, talking fast about her day at school, about the project submission, about how Mrs. Chin loved the interview and asked if she could share excerpts with the class. I said I had to ask you first. What excerpts? The parts about not making yourself smaller. About carrying other people's misunderstanding. She said those were important lessons for all the students. Lily pauses. Is that okay? It's okay. As long as you're comfortable with people knowing our story. I'm proud of our story, she says simply. Why wouldn't I want people to know? After we hang up, I sit in my quiet apartment and think about legacy again. About the stories we tell, the lessons we pass down, the ways our struggles become teaching tools for others. Kandahar was supposed to be my private nightmare. Then it became courtroom evidence. Then teaching curriculum. Now it's my daughter's school project, excerpts shared with 13-year-olds learning about resilience. The fire doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to everyone who's learned from it, who's used it to understand something about crisis or courage or survival. That should bother me, this loss of ownership over my worst experience. But instead it feels right. Like the pain has been transformed into something useful, something that serves others rather than just haunting me. I check my locks once, verify the windows once, set my alarm for 0500. The routines persist, will probably always persist. But they're habits now rather than compulsions. Choices I make because they help me feel settled, not because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't perform them. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Colonel Donovan, this is Major Ashley Chen's mother. Your daughter interviewed you for her project and shared some excerpts with my daughter. I'm about to start basic training and was terrified I'd lose myself or my relationship with my kid. Your words about the important parts not changing gave me courage. Thank you for your service and for your honesty. I respond, the important parts don't change. You'll be an excellent soldier and an excellent mother. Trust yourself. Then I turn off the lights and go to bed, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. The promotions, the challenges, the continued balancing act of career and motherhood. All of it manageable because I've stopped apologizing for who I've become. Stopped letting anyone else define what's possible for a woman who's been through fire and come out whole. They called me unstable because I couldn't sleep. They never asked why. But my daughter did. And that made all the difference. Thanks for listening. I'm Major Claire Donovan, and that's how 7 quiet words cut through a courtroom full of noise. If this hit home, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a win today. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been labeled unstable or too intense when you were just being prepared? What boundary did you set that finally changed the dynamic? Parents, how do you explain hard truths to kids without scaring them? Veterans or first responders, What's one habit people misread, but actually keeps you safe? If you've been through a custody fight, what helped you stay steady in court? Do you think I should have worn the uniform in court or kept it civilian? Drop your story, your advice, or your questions below. Your voice might be the proof someone else needs.